Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts, sports journalist David Todd, and from SteelersDepot.com, Dave Bryan. Just a couple of Daves, chillin', talking Steelers. Now, here's Dave and Dave.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Dave. He's Dave Bryan at SteelersDepot.com, the place to get your latest and greatest Steelers information. And I'm David Todd. It's Season 9, Episode 9, and the Steelers are 9 and out at St. Vincent College, Dave. They're done. Couple weeks up there. Great job by Alex, filing daily reports, walking through the raindrops and everything else, and the podcast all you guys did. And the Steelers now on their way to Green Bay today to get ready to play the Packers tomorrow at as Mike said yesterday, the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, but it will not be frozen tomorrow evening.
No, it will not. Boy, the grind to camp is finally over, and no more two-a-days for me. I'm too old for that. One thing, David, I kind of before we get into talking, about previewing the game and what Mike Tomlin had to say and what transpired with Ben and all. I know we have a lot of female listeners. Because quite a few of them reach out to me on Twitter here and there as well. But I'd like to hear from more of them. So if
you're tired of the old lady?
No. Look. They take one look at me and think that my voice maybe doesn't sound as bad as what I probably look. But no, I'm just curious as to the. I guess, what the percentage would be. Look, we see our raw stats of where people live and suspected age group and all like that, but we really don't have breakdowns of gender or anything like that. And I know we have quite a few female listeners out there. So, if you do fit into that classification, send us an email, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. And let us hear from you. Maybe we'll read a couple of the emails on the air. And the second thing that always has me curious is how many. I'm still floored sometimes when I look at these listenership stats, and especially now that we've moved over to Spreaker and all, and get a different kind of breakdown. I'm curious as to how many people listen to the podcast who are also on Twitter. I use Twitter all the time, and thus I think everybody uses Twitter, but that's not necessarily the case. I know you use Twitter. I'm not a Facebook guy, David.
I would guess 10% of our listeners use Twitter. That would be my guess.
You think that low?
I do. See, I think a lot of them are our age, and they're doing a lot of other things, and they're not on Twitter.
See,
none of my friends are on Twitter.
You have friends?
Well, I call anybody I know, I call a friend. I'm like Jim Nantz. Hello, friends.
Well, I don't have any friends. I don't know. I think Alex is my friend. That's about.
I'm your friend.
Yeah, you are. But are you think it's that low? I would think that people that are. What's the word? Techie enough or millennial enough or to.
What do you think? What do you think the average age of our listener is?
At one time I thought it might be, 30 to 40, but sometimes I wonder because I don't get good feedback on some of my.
That's it. The old people like us aren't emailing and tweeting at us to tell us.
The old school, my old school hot takes, or references,
Yeah.
I know a lot of it. A lot of people get my my pop culture kind of references. I don't know the answer to that, and that's something that's really hard for us to drill down, in stats as far as age. I don't think it's as old.
I think it's 30 to 50, and 85 to 90% male. That's my guess. I'd say 80% is in the 30 to 50 range. 30 to 50, 80%. except I'm over 50 now, and you're getting there, and so we might, I don't know. We got a lot of listeners in the 50 to 60 range. I know that.
I wonder how many solely use the podcast as their source of, I guess, news, talk, information, recap.
We need a roll call of 10,000.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is how many of those same people visit Steelers Depot, on a regular basis. I would assume a lot of them. I mean, how would they come across the podcast?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people. I'm sure most people who listen to the podcast go to the website as well. But, all right, let's move. We're navel gazing. Let's move forward.
What's a navel gazing?
All right,
Mike Tomlin.
Let's start with Mike. Was there anything interesting?
Yeah,
Mike smiled a bit. He smiled a bit. He was in a jovial mood for Mike at a press conference.
I enjoyed the presser. I thought, I told Alex, I think last night that I thought it was, as far as preseason press conferences go, it was good with him. Here's what he had to say. Ben obviously is not going to play in the in the second preseason game against the Packers. I guess that's now a great time to say that Ben went down during the 7 shots portion of practice on Tuesday. Bumped his head pretty good, evidently. Immediately left practice, was down on the ground on his knees, kind of holding his head at first. Then left, sat on a cooler, got up, talked to John Norwig, head trainer, and Kevin Colbert, and then left. Elvis left the building at that point. And later, after practice was over, they said he was being evaluated for a concussion. I think none of the players think it's serious. I know Aditi Kinkle-Bala put out there that she doesn't know now if Ben's going to travel to Green Bay. I would be absolutely floored if Ben did not travel to that game. And if he didn't, then there would be a little bit of reason to be concerned, moderately concerned, I guess, when it comes to obviously to concussions is nothing to joke about there. But I think by the time this team gets back from Green Bay, I guess they're going to resume practice on Saturday. Ben will be part of that. But look, he wasn't going to play in this game against Green Bay anyway. So there you go.
So let me I just want to throw in my 2 cents. This is a non-event, non-story. Yeah, I understand. It's training camp. I understand the reason it is getting attention, of course. The franchise quarterback hit his head. I hate to say this because if I'm wrong, I look like the biggest ass going. But, when they let the quarterback walk around by himself, after practice and he's, going to get his meal by himself and he's, walking around fine. Ben's fine. There's no issues. Pouncey said he was fine. He said he's fine. Yeah, there could be wrong. There could be ramifications the next day, 24 hours later. I mean, he just went down and kind of banged his head a little bit. I don't know. Not even. It was if you read different accounts, there was some blocking going on and he kind of tangled up legs with some guys, or there was no contact. But I mean, this is he lay on the ground a couple seconds. And look, I take head injuries very seriously. It's just from all indications, this is a non-event. Okay, let's just hope so. But yes, I understand why people are talking about it, and we just spent 3 minutes on it.
Okay, Landry Jones. I'm going to win that under bet with you. Landry Jones is not going.
I saw you tweet that too, and what was the bet again?
Didn't you say like 100?
Yeah, I did say something like that because I was thinking 5 quarters, so I think that is right. So if he gets none in this one, I'm a dead loser for sure.
This thing is going to go the way I hoped it was going to go. Landry Jones is not going to play. Ben's not going to play against the Packers. The young quarterbacks are going to be featured exclusively. Mike Tomlin would not reveal the order, but if you're a betting man, David Todd, what order will the quarterbacks go in Thursday night?
I know you're probably going to disagree with me. I think for one more week, it will be Dobbs who gets the first crack at it. First half, second half this week, and you flip it next week. I think they'll just give him one more opportunity to be the first guy in.
I'm going the other way. You are correct, sir. I'm going with Mason Rudolph starting this game, playing the first half. Joshua Dobbs playing the second half. Look, neither one of these, there's a good chance that in the third preseason game, I mean, you definitely want to get Ben about a quarter or a quarter and a half of work at least, or at least a couple of good series, whatever amount that's defined as. You probably want to get Landry another couple of series, right? In the third preseason game. So, you're probably going to, what are you going to do with those two younger quarterbacks in the third preseason game? Obviously, both of them, and maybe even Landry Jones a little bit in the finale there. But this is the game that is the perfect opportunity to see what these two young quarterbacks can do. And I am...
Yeah, they'll each get a half, right? I mean, they're each going to get a half. I mean, that's a given, right? You're just going to split halves.
I would think so, and I'm betting that Mason Rudolph gets the first half, and that's what I'm hoping happens.
Fair enough. Josh Dobbs better, it would be very telling if Josh Dobbs doesn't get to play in week 3. Then he's done. Ben gets a series or a quarter. Landry Jones finishes the half. If Mason Rudolph gets the reason I think it might work the way I think that Dobbs gets the first half this time, then Mason Rudolph gets the third quarter and into the fourth, and Dobbs mops up in week 3, and then in week 4, Landry gets the first quarter at least, I would think, and then who knows from there.
And what do we want?
Maybe it's the rest of the game.
And what do we want to see out of the young quarterbacks? I want to see Mason Rudolph a kind of a continuation of what he did in the first one, continue to push the football down the field. It'll be interesting to see, how his poise and all, starting a game actually, even though it doesn't count, to see how all that goes. Some clean exchanges. He had that bad exchange in the game against Philadelphia. I just want to see we have a mark point on him now. I just don't want to see any huge regression from what we saw in that first preseason game. I liked a lot of what he did in that game. As long as we're not seeing a huge regression, I think it will be graded positively. Joshua Dobbs, I want to see him push the ball down the field more. Look, that was it was a laser throw to Patterson. We talked about that the other day. We talked about the interception. Those were the two balls that he really pushed down the field. A few other ones there, his accuracy wasn't all that. Okay, so I want to see better accuracy out of Joshua Dobbs in this game. I want to see him be able to push the ball down the field a little bit more often than he did. And a couple, he kind of forced a couple of those balls in that Philly game as well too. Maybe one of them should have been another one should have been picked off. But I, as a analyst, fan, geek, whatever, I'm as excited as one can be right now about this game and getting to see these two young quarterbacks play.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we all want to see, as Mike said, that there's a baseline in place and you want to see development. You put in a little bit more of the game plan. You want to see them go through their progressions. You want to see them throw different kinds of passes. You want to see them command the huddle. You'd like to see them work in the 2-minute offense. All those types of things. Some of them will be dictated by game situations. Some of them won't, and we'll just see the progress as it goes.
And Mike said there'd be a little bit more game planning involved in this one than the none that happened the week before. So at least it'll give these guys, I think, a little bit of a chance, maybe. All right, moving on from that into wide receivers. I think this is going to be an interesting thing to watch. Obviously, AB's not going to play in this game. Being as you're opening up with one of the two young quarterbacks, do you feel the need whatsoever I guess what I'm getting at is how much DHB do you have to see in this game? How much Justin Hunter do you have to see in this game? And do you entertain the thought maybe of just throwing out the three young rotating 3 or 4 of those young wide receivers, such as James Washington, Damon Patterson, Marcus Tucker, and of course Juju? Which way, or is it a little bit of combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. I don't think you'll see much of DHB. I do think you'll see Justin Hunter. Justin Hunter's working to make the team as a wide receiver. He'll be out there. I would think he'll take. I would think he'll start and take regular reps. I agree with DHB and the rest. Everything else you said.
I mean, do we really need to see more of DHB in a second preseason
No,
game?
you won't see. I don't think you'll see DHB.
Oh no, I'm sorry, Hunter. Hunter.
Yeah, no, I think you do. I think he's still got. I think he's got to show. He needs to be out there, because the other thing is, if he's going to make the team, he needs to be a receiver. He needs to get the reps. He needs the work. So yeah, I think he'll definitely be out there.
So let's say first two series. Are you putting out there Juju, Hunter, and DHB in 3 wide?
No, probably. I don't know. Maybe DHB gets a series. I guess maybe they'll do it as a courtesy if he's going to play some. But yeah, probably. I mean, if DHB plays, yes, that's who I'm putting out there. And then you just say, okay, good work, DHB, you're done, and then go from there.
All right. And my Christmas in August scenario, being as how Santa's already brought me to 2 young quarterbacks, I'm hoping to not see DHB or Justin Hunter at all, and I would like to see Washington, Patterson, and Juju run out there immediately. I want, if I get my wish, I want to see Washington and Patterson.
Who's in the slot on that?
Well, Juju, yeah. Patterson's the guy that they seemingly have been moving around quite a bit as well.
If he can play the slot, his ability to make this team improves. Needless to say.
Yeah, I think they view him more as playing more of the Antonio Brown role. If you will. But regardless, I think Juju's primary spot when 3 wide is going to be in the slot. But all that aside, I'm hoping for, over 40 snaps for James Washington and Damon Patterson each in this game. I really think this is a great opportunity to look at both those guys. Marcus Tucker too. Like to see him get quite a few snaps in this game as well too. But Mike Tomlin was asked by Mike Pursuta, I believe it was, who asked a question about Patterson and how does he rank or how did he rate his game against the Eagles and what he's done so far during training camp, and Mike gave kind of the obvious answer that he's shown some good things, but we're not talking about a few things that that he did wrong in that game, but overall good representation. Now he wants to see him continue to do that. So we want to see another solid game for Damon Patterson. If he does that, I think he's really in a prime spot to potentially make this 53-man roster here. Washington, he's obviously going to make the 53. Want to see maybe another contested catch or two. I'd like to see him get on top of somebody over the top in this game. Big reception or two down the field in this game as well too. And with Mason Rudolph probably going to spend some time in this quite a few snaps in this game with Washington, I assume that we're going to see a couple of deep shots down the right side of the field there. I don't need to see a lot of Juju in the game, but I think it's good to roll him out there a little bit. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for these young wide receivers.
Yeah, it makes it look. I mean, I think for everybody, you just like to see guys play well, and however that's defined, whether quarterback, receiver, offensive lineman. We'll see how that goes. Let me ask you this: defensively, Mike was asked, Aaron Rodgers is going to play. Is that a challenge? Is it going to impact what you do? And he gave the standard response. Of course, we're not worried about what the other guys do in preseason games. We're worried about evaluating ourselves and getting better. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but that's what he meant. And that's the right approach. But I would expect. Did he say Cam wouldn't play? I think he said Cam wouldn't play. But the guys in the secondary, they're going to get their run, and the linebackers are all going to get their run. So I think the only question mark is probably Stephon Tuitt. Does he play? But you're going to see, TJ's not going to play. I assume he said Bud's going to play. So you're going to see the Steelers starting defense, ex Cam Hayward, ex TJ Watt, and then question mark next to Stephon Tuitt. But when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers going against the Steelers pass defense, these are the guys who are going to be on the field.
Yeah, let's keep your fingers crossed Sean Davis plays too. He's been battling a groin, and Is he day to day, or is he in that week to week category?
Yeah, so he got asked that. He got asked that question specifically, right? And he said day to day, so that's good.
Right. So hopefully he'll be out there. And look, the big emphasis is going to be on these inside linebackers and the edge rushers again. Especially look, Bud Dupree's first preseason. Bud's only played. I hate to keep bringing this stat up, but only played 30 preseason snaps the last couple of seasons. So I'd like to see him stay on the field now, and I'd like to see Bud Dupree get quite a bit of work Thursday night against the Packers. Obviously, want to see as much of the starting secondary as you can roll out there for as long as you can roll out there, especially with Aaron Rodgers. I hope Aaron Rodgers plays, and I hope he plays a good first quarter and gets three series, because I want to see him go to work on this defense.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if he gets 3 series. I'll be maybe surprised if he gets 2, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, again, Rodgers isn't going to be whipping out the full arsenal, but it's Aaron Rodgers, probably the most talented quarterback in the NFL. So always good to have a challenge.
So defensive side of the ball, you already said Hayward's not going to play. Obviously, Watt's probably not going to play. I would assume Chicolo lining up opposite Bud Dupree. We'll see if Tuitt. I think Tuitt could use a series or 2. Obviously, I think Lulu will be out there. Bostic and Vince Williams on the inside. And then the starting secondary, Artie's had another decent camp, so we need to see that now carry over for a full season, because his 5th-year option is up after this year. They have to make a decision on that. Joe Hayden, I don't know how much you think Joe Hayden's got left. You have to think that there's a good chance that this might be Joe Hayden's last year in Pittsburgh.
He's got another year on his contract, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, people are raving about him in camp. Look, I think you and I had a different view than that kind of Steelers Nation, in the sense that I think Joe Hayden was fine last year. I don't think he was exceptional. But people are, maybe having a year with the team, and then having the entire offseason and now the preseason with the organization just is going to make him a better performer this year than even though he's getting older. Look, Joe Hayden's fine. I imagine he'll be healthy enough to play next year. I would bet today that Joe Hayden and Artie Burns are your starting cornerbacks next year, because I don't think they're going to draft one. But having said that, we know who's on the roster and we know who's out there. I mean, does Cam Sutton develop enough, and they say, just straight dollars, if Cam Sutton's 90% of Joe Hayden, we need to spend that money elsewhere, and we'll shake hands with Joe Hayden. But I think he will be physically capable of being a solid corner in 2019 as well.
Joe Hayden's in that Vance McDonald classification. Lots going to depend on what happens this season. And as long as Joe Hayden is Joe Hayden and can stay on the field, and as you mentioned, he's finally had full training camp now with the Steelers. No off-season surgeries to have to recuperate from. All the cards right now are lined up for him to return to maybe the Joe Hayden he was a couple of seasons ago. And if he does that, the Steelers secondary be in good shape. And if Artie can play, if Artie can play the way he practices, they'll be in good shape there too, or should be.
Yeah, I agree.
And then it comes to,
there's room for big improvement with Artie and Sean Davis and Morgan Burnett. Obviously, if he can step up, just a bit on Mike Mitchell's performance, and Joe's as good or better. I mean, there is room for significant improvement with this secondary, and it's literally across each position, with Hayden's probably being the one with the least level of improvement.
Now, tracking training camp stats, we're clowns for doing it, or stat geeks, or unnecessary. But for whatever it's worth, however you view us spending our time, or Alex spending his time at training camp, which, by the way, nobody does it like him. But stats, they had quite a few interceptions, this defense did, during training camp. It'll be interesting to see if that has any if that rolls over into the first part of this season. So they were evidently making quite a few plays in that secondary there, and it gives you some, I guess, false sense of hope, maybe, that we'll see the secondary make a couple more plays this year. Of course, your buddy Tom Bradley in that secondary and all. Have you talked to him much, David?
I haven't. Look, we have a very good relationship. I didn't want to bother him while he was at St. Vincent. There's a lot of time, not only on the fields, but watching film. But I will probably speak to him, sometime after between the end of the Packer game and certainly before the start of the regular season.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear, maybe deeper down an overall, honest assessment of what he thinks of his group, and you're not
going to get that from him through me. So because that will be on the
well,
record.
okay,
We'll get it in bits and pieces.
He'll give you some hyperbole, some coach speak, if you will. But, wondering more, and one guy I want to see more of during the preseason, some Brian Allen. I think it'd be nice to see him a little bit. And then, obviously, deeper down on the roster, and look, Marcus Allen. If Marcus Allen does not play in this game, in his second preseason game, and with the practices that he's already missed with whatever undisclosed injury that he has right now, you want to talk about...
Well, then his practice squad, candidacy starts to wane. Not making the 53. It's whether he makes the practice squad starts to become an issue.
Yeah, I don't want to go there yet. I think he's virtual lock to get that direction there. But
remember our boy Terry Hawthorne. First round pedigree his junior year. Steelers get him in the 5th. Is he going to make the team? Doesn't even make the practice squad.
Yeah, but that was a knee injury there, though.
Well, it wasn't at the end of practice. I mean, he missed a lot of time because of the knee, but he was, at the end of practice, he was fine. I was sitting, watching him run and talking to him at the end of the season, when they cut him.
Yeah, but what? I'll have to go back and look. I just remember him being banged up. I thought most of
he was banged up a lot. But obviously Marcus Allen is dealing with some of the same stuff. It will be interesting, to see. Look, I think Frazier's,
there's nothing.
I like hooks. So how many defensive linemen are going to make the practice squad?
Well, I would think maybe you keep 2.
Yeah.
Look, Frazier needs help to make it at this point. The kid out of Alabama. I think though he is more of a guy that you line up for the practice squad. Hooks has been around for a couple years now, practice squad guy here and there. You have to think this is it for him. Gilmore, the undrafted free agent, maybe that's a guy that you look at. Vickers is a name that Alex Vickers is a name that Alex continues to throw out there. Right now, Marcus Allen needs help. Frazier needs help. And as we talked the other day, Jalen Samuels is really going to have to
he needs help.
Yeah,
he needs help.
He's going to really have to have some numbers, I think, work in his direction here with him. So I think definitely 2 of these draft picks are not making the 53. And now the question becomes, is that number going to be as high as 3? So Samuel should see. What do you want to see out of running back? Do you need to see Ridley might not play? He's a little banged up right now.
I've said this before. I liked what I saw of Stephen Ridley at the end of last year. Mike told him to lose 10 pounds, which is interesting if he felt like he could be even quicker. Mike's had a relationship with Stephen Ridley going back to his days at LSU, right? That's where he went, if I'm remembering correctly. So, and he obviously, we know that Mike has an affinity for Fitz. So, Samuels nobody's picking him up. He is an easy move to the practice squad guy. Ridley, I'm sure, is out of practice squad eligibility, as is Fitz. So those 2 guys can't get to the practice squad. So, not that that'll be a determining factor, but it's, just something else to keep in mind. Those guys are there. I can't imagine that Fitz or Ridley gets picked up by another team either. So I'm not worried about any of the three of them if they get cut, not clearing waivers. But for the other two, clearing waivers means they're just, they're waiting for the Steelers' phone call. At least for Samuels, you got a place to put him.
I don't think it's fair to say Mike Tomlin has an affinity for Fitzgerald Toussaint. Remember, Fitz was cut last year in the 53 because remember the Watson, they kept Watson. Now Fitz ended up coming up after spending the first 5-6 weeks on the practice squad. So I think there might be a little bit more of an affinity for Stephon Ridley right now. But we'll definitely see on that. I mean, Connor, how much of Connor do you have to see in this game? And I would assume that you would be hoping to see a lot of Jalen Samuels in this game.
Yeah, look, James Conner, you're not saving James Conner because you're worried about him getting injured or whatever. James Conner's a young football player who hasn't carried the ball much in the past year and a half. He needs to play football. So, get in there and play the first half. Get him 10 carries, get him 15 carries. He's got to play football. So you're not saving James Conner for anything. Let him out there, let him play. And yeah, Samuels, I'd like to see him get 10 touches. Look, I want Conner to get at least 10 touches in this game. And, I'd like to see Samuels get, 5 to 10 touches. Because if he doesn't get 5 to 10 touches, it's going to make it even harder to make the team.
And really watch his special team snaps too. Samuels.
Yep, for sure. I mean, everybody. I didn't pay a lot of time. I wasn't taking notes in this game, so I did. To be honest with you, I didn't pay attention to a lot of the special teams. Not saying it's not significant. I wasn't paying attention to it, so I don't know who was gunning and who was, who was doing that.
And that's so hard to see on the TV tape. I try to do it every year. That's why I wish they'd give us the all 22 during the preseason as well. I don't know why they don't. I mean, entice us and throw that in the all 22 on that, because trying to it's hard enough to decipher preseason games with 80 guys running around out there, and keeping up with the charting on that with the TV angle. And then, with special teams, it's next to impossible to kind of chart that as well, too. But, watch him on this. Should Cameron Sutton start maybe getting some punt return opportunities?
Well, if he doesn't, in the next 2 weeks, if he doesn't, then, I don't know what they're assuming, because who was the other guy back? Was it Phillips? Was he back beside Quadri? Who was the other? Who else was back there?
Thomas, wasn't it? Justin
Thomas.
Right.
Yeah, Justin Thomas. Yeah, I mean, neither of those guys are circled to make the 53. So, you're not going to put AB back there. You don't need to do it. And Eli Rogers isn't going to be back there, obviously. So at some point, you probably want to have somebody who's going to be on the team doing it. Yes, so that's a good thought. It doesn't have to be this game. It can be the Packers, because it can be the next two games. But yeah, at some point you're going to do it.
Well, as of right now, Antonio Brown's your punt returner, right?
Well, I'll bet you that Antonio Brown in the Steelers' first 8 games, I'll bet Antonio Brown's not back. I'll bet he's back less than half the time.
All right. Well, who's going to return punts?
Well, I just told you I don't know the answer to that, but I'm betting it's not going to be Antonio Brown.
All right. Well, if it's not him, who is your odds-on favorite to do it? Eli's not going to be around for the first 6 weeks.
No, unless something changes. I mean, he's obviously, if he were on the roster, he's clearly the guy. But maybe Cam Sutton is the guy. Maybe we'll learn something in this. That's a very good question. I don't have a good answer for you.
You want to talk about Christmas in August? That's and look,
put Juju back there.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're not going to do it. But.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, bless his heart. Quadri Henderson's not making this roster, unless he. I mean, what I'm getting at, I want to see Cam Sutton return some punts. He did it at Tennessee. He did it well, I thought. Why not go that direction? Because quite honestly, you got to get Cameron Sutton contributing right at the start of the season, and if he's not going to, even though he will some of those snaps on defense, barring injury, it's going to kind of be few and far between. So why not take care? I don't understand the Mike Tomlin, or even if this is us making it up, the bias against defensive players doing things like returning. Now, he did, remember a couple years ago, he threw Justin Gilbert back there on kickoffs and all like that. Do you think there's a perceived bias?
Well, first of all, that just was a bug in my, a bee in my bonnet. Let's say it that way instead of the other way. Whole time.
Go even further back to the running back they had on the roster a couple years ago.
We talked about the kid from, we were on that from the beginning. The kid who again took one back against the Steelers for Carolina in the last preseason game. Steelers end up getting him, and we're both drawing a blank, obviously, on his name, and they didn't use him. It wasn't Mewelde Moore. I took it 10 years back too far. I know you're looking it up. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm drawing the blank right now.
Come on, because you were definitely on that. I was on Justin Gilbert. We said, both these guys should be returning kicks because they have pedigree. I mean, just from the year before in the league. I mean, this wasn't from college. These guys had done it in the league, and Mike wouldn't do it. Now, I know the question you're going to ask me about Cam Sutton is there a bias against defensive players? There shouldn't be. There shouldn't be. Certainly on kick returns, I don't think there should be.
Jordan Todman, damn it.
Jordan Todman, right? Yep.
Why don't I remember? I can remember stuff all the way back.
76 when Laverne Smith, Kansas fourth-round pick, broke his right tibia against the Colts, returning a kickoff, and I thought he was going to be the greatest kick returner ever, and he was nothing because of it. I can remember that too. But Jordan Todman, that's too close to home.
Last night or the night before, I can't really run it together here on my 2 days, but I was rattling off guys on the inactive list to start the season in 2010 by memory, but I can't remember. You want to talk about an idiot savant or an idiot? My wife leaves the savant off for some reason. Maybe she doesn't know the term, the full meaning of it. She just calls me an idiot. Another word too that I can't use on the show, or else we'll have to mark it as explicit content on Spreaker. But you know what I'm getting at here. I mean,
sure. Look, these jobs are open, and that's why I thought Quadri Henderson had a chance. We'll see. Maybe he takes one back in this game and he puts himself, back in the conversation. Maybe Thomas does something. Thomas is a guy who could make the practice squad. I don't know that Quadri. He's not a guy you keep around, but somebody may give Quadri. I would imagine if Quadri does not make the Steelers practice squad, he will be on somebody else's practice squad because he has enough of a pedigree as a returner in college that if somebody has a spot, they may look to use him. So, Thomas,
I'm gonna disagree with you. I bet he doesn't open the season. I bet the first 3 weeks of the season at least, Quadri's not on any team's practice squad.
All right, that's a fair bet. I'll take the other side of that. Dree Archer. Dree Archer went in the third round. Quadri was an undrafted free agent. Dree bounced around, got a little bit of time, but clearly he was a guy who could not make the transition. I don't think anybody's ever questioned, looked at Quadri as kind of a rag doll, the way kind of Dree Archer got thrown around. Pretty apparent in the NFL that you kind of just get him with one hand and he's toast. I think Quadri's a little tougher than that. But we'll see. I mean, hopefully he gets an opportunity too. But I'm with you on the overall thing. The return game situation's wide open, and that's something, look, as it has been really for the Steelers for the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, in a big moment, Antonio Brown's going to be the guy who returns punts, but they haven't had a kick returner, a designated kind of quality kick returner in forever. And they haven't, I think they did have a backup to Antonio Brown the past couple of years in Eli Rogers. So that situation's obviously slightly different because they've been looking to move away from Antonio Brown doing it all the time. And now the guy who, was the obvious replacement isn't around right now. So, that's, and there's no heir apparent to that role. All right. Should we take a quick look around the league?
No. Let's talk about, send in the clowns. Where are the clowns? Shouldn't
What's the
there
next
be
line?
clowns? I don't know. You were really dating. I threw those lyrics out there on Twitter yesterday and got zero response. So you want to talk about age of our listenership?
It's like 4 straight verses like that I used to, if they were singing it and they gave me the next word, I could get the verse. But yeah, I don't have it off the top of my head. So anyway,
I can rattle off some Barry Manilow for you too from Even Now. Do you remember Even Now? Even now I think about you as I'm climbing up the stairs.
Gotta get my headset readjusted. Sounds like you're singing. Oh,
you know, believe it or not, I used to be a damn good musician. I really,
well, that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me.
I really did. I used to be a pretty decent. Obviously, my bass playing was better than my singing.
It was loud. It was loud.
Right. It was one more louder. My bass playing was obviously better than my singing, but boy, I'm gonna write a book so far. One day I'm gonna call it "So Far So Good So What."
I like it. All right. So, yeah. So Antonio Brown, for those who didn't see it, there were a couple reporters, one of them being Ed Bouchette from the Post-Gazette, who said, Antonio Brown kind of left team drills during practice and went on the side. And it turned out he went to work by himself, kind of do some individual work. But, guys, you know how guys are when they practice. Maybe they got a little bit dinged and you walk a little bit gimpy or, like you're stretching out or whatever. And so Ed Bouchette said, Antonio Brown kind of limped over to the sideline out of team drills is the gist of it. Something somewhat innocuous, but this is today's day and age with Twitter is people are reporting literally if you have a hangnail, if you fall and bump your head, and you're the quarterback, yeah, if you're the star receiver and you take one step that looks slightly different, somebody may report and say, it just looked odd in 1975 with Chuck Noll. If that happened, no, you'd never hear about it, never be discussed, blah, blah, blah. So Antonio Brown decided that who he knows exactly who Ed Bouchette is, had been around the team about 3 times or 4 times as long as Antonio Brown's been around the team. And he said, yo, bro, basically, he gave to Bryce Harper, that's clown stuff, and was very, very kind of abusive, unnecessarily abusive, just saying, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, Dave. And, it was just unnecessary from Antonio Brown, is my perspective. I don't really care about it. Ed's, I know Ed, obviously. He's a good guy. It's just, why do you do that stuff on social media? Why in front of your 1 million followers do you insult people unnecessarily? You could have talked to Ed Bouchette, could have just mentioned it, or just said, no, I'm fine, no big deal. He went after Ed Bouchette totally unnecessarily, is my view, Dave.
Here's the thing. I mean, here's the exact tweet from Ed Bouchette. Antonio Brown limps off practice after some early individual work. Now, if Ed thought he saw that, then I understand him tweeting that, and I believe that he thinks that he did see that. And then it gets back into the play-by-play, every move somebody makes, tweet recaps and all. Look, I mean, in no way, shape, or form am I going to ask Alex to stop doing what he does out there. I think he does a great job of painting pictures for those of us who do not go to training camp. Because Ed is who Ed is, and because the tweet involved Antonio Brown, and because it evidently wasn't an injury, that's the way it blew up. Look, I had fun on Twitter yesterday, passive aggressively tweeting, making fun of Ed, but that's only because he took to the radio early yesterday morning and basically called us out for charting, pass attempts during training camp. I mean, he didn't say it was us, but who else does it? So, I was going to leave it alone in its entirety. I have a lot. People probably think now I hate Ed Bouchette. I don't. I have a lot of respect for Ed Bouchette. Ed Bouchette has done a lot of great writing. I know this might sound crazy. I have become a better writer because of reading Ed Bouchette over the years. Now, I still have a long ways to go, obviously, but I respect Ed Bouchette's work. I think is he too snarky in his chats and maybe on Twitter? Hey, I'm a butthole on Twitter at times. I guess there's some people that still follow me, so or listen to me. We could all be better humans, right? So I think I don't understand why Antonio Brown went the route that he did. Do players like that do they run out of motivation? Are they so good that they need other things to fire them up? I mean, are we at the stage with him now where he's got to go after every little thing to make it more of a them versus me type thing? Could that superstar mentality of I need to get better, I need something to motivate me, play any role in this?
I mean, if you're asking my opinion, I never know what Antonio Brown's motivation is. He can be the most charismatic, charming guy in the world, and he's great in front of the television. He can do things like not show up at Children's Hospital, I guess, recently, or show up 4 hours late when he has a commitment to be there. Yet at the same time, he writes a $100,000 check. I know on my station and DVE that we carried a radio show that Jerry Dulac and Dale Lawley used to do right after my show, and Antonio Brown was the guest on that show for a bunch of years, and he would frequently not show. He was only required to be there for an hour out of 2. He was getting paid a lot of money to do the show for the time commitment that he was, asked to make. He agreed to it before the season each year, and then he would, repeatedly not show up. It's very unprofessional. It's very immature. So, look, I'm not going to sit here and I don't know the guy personally. And I made a point always when I was working to not have a relationship with these guys. I would do my job, but I never wanted to be the guy who was getting quotes in the locker room or after practice. That's not my gig. I want to be dispassionate in that respect and just tell people what I think about the individuals based on what they do on the football field. And, as people who listen to this podcast know, I generally, try to keep my analysis focused to what's going on the field. And I just some of it I hate, some of it I can tolerate. Most of the stuff that's I look at as nonsense, but I also it doesn't really upset me. It doesn't I'm not going to get it's not going to take up any of my mental energy. So Antonio Brown has a history of, often being very charismatic and building his brand and publicity and has done some great things, but he has also screwed up more things than I can count on all day, Dave, however many fingers and toes I have.
Mike Tomlin was asked during his press conference about, Antonio going after Ed. And, Mike says, I don't have the facts, and told Aditi, you're my only source right now. So why would I?
I thought he handled it beautifully. He just said, I can't, it's not fair to anybody for me to just hear it here as you being the only source and me commenting on it. I'll, if it's necessary for me to gather the facts, I will. And if I do comment on it, it will be in-house. I will not do it in this forum. So we're not going to hear about it from Mike again.
Right. Now here, and we're not going to know what happened after the fact, but let me ask you this. If you're Mike Tomlin and you research and you find the facts out, how are you handling this, or are you saying anything? How are you handling this internally? Or are you handling it at all? Or are you just in passing saying, man, take it easy on these media guys. They're you don't have to do that. Let them don't worry about what they write or tweet.
I think what he does is he asks Burt Lawton passing, like, Burt, what happened with this Antonio Brown thing? Is this anything I need to be concerned about? Burt tells him what happened, and then Mike makes a decision whether he says, Antonio, what, just cut that crap out. Why do you have to do that, or not? And I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know how many times he's had to deal with this with Antonio Brown, and whether he thinks it's important or not. So I really don't know how Mike would handle it. But I think that's how he would handle. He would just ask somebody, Burt, the PR guy, Burt Lawton, and say, what was being referred to in that last question, is this something I need to pay attention to? Because it was such an easy, short answer for Burt to respond. I'm sure Burt would just say what happened, and then Mike's got to make a decision of how he's going to handle it.
And how would you handle it?
I guess it just depends on how Mike has handled these things with Antonio Brown over the years, and I just don't have that knowledge. But he does. He's dealt with him for 6-7 years, whatever it is. So I'm sure he's going to have an opinion, and it's either going to be this is more nonsense that's just not worth the energy that it would take for me to deal with it, or he needs to know that. The individuals in Pittsburgh media need to be respected. All media members need to be respected, and there's no need for nonsense like that on Twitter. I don't know which way he'd go, but those are the two options in my mind.
All right, who's the offensive player we're talking about the most, having the biggest impact in preseason game number 2? Juju. I'll go James Washington.
I would think I had James and Cam Sutton last week.
What about defensive side of the ball?
Let's go with our boy Thomas, Matthew Thomas. Sorry. I'll go the number one. I'll go the number one and number 2 draft picks. I know that's kind of cheating, being as how they are draft picks, and we should be talking about them. But I'm going to go James Washington and Terrell Edmunds as the 2 players that we're talking about, hopefully positively on Friday there. Okay, around the league real quick. Yeah, around the league. Martavis missing a couple practices with migraines. I thought what was interesting was when Gruden commented on it a couple days ago, he said he had a headache. And to me, that wasn't good for anybody, because, saying a headache and saying a migraine are 2 completely different things. Fortunately, I don't suffer from migraines, but I know people who do. And I know, Dave, you've had these cluster headaches over the years, and they're just debilitating things. But if you say somebody has a headache, it's kind of like, I don't want to practice today. So again, just more stuff for Martavis that he needs to get back on the field.
Absolutely. What do you? Anything else? Would you be surprised if Martavis gets cut?
Yeah, I'd be shocked.
I would too. They're trying to, I think, kind of make this thing out like he might not make it. But if he doesn't make it, Reggie McKenzie. You better hope the Raiders make the playoffs this year, because you giving away a 3rd-round pick for a guy with 1 year left on the contract, and he craps out before the regular season even starts. That's a bad. I'm still in shock. Kevin Colbert was able to do a Jedi mind trick on Reggie McKenzie and get that 3rd-round pick. I still don't know how that happened. Anything else around the league?
Sorry. So I learned to mute my microphone 9 years into the show. So when I sneeze, or which I didn't get on the last time, or chew ice or whatever, so I had the mute on. But I was saying in Cleveland, Aditi Kinkhabwala said that, and it seems very clear that the Cleveland coaching staff is making it very clear that Tyrod, not Tyrod, Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starter over Baker Mayfield. They say Mayfield's coming along nicely and progressing, but Tyrod's our guy.
Well, why wouldn't he be? I mean,
right. It starts the season. Exactly what I expected as well.
And Hugh Jackson has said as much right from the get-go before even the draft. I think that Tyrod is going to be the starter on this team. initially here. Now, obviously, they got Baker Mayfield at some point. Something's going to happen there, but
Well, that's always the thing. Look, we heard that about Mitch Trubisky and Mike Glennon last year, and it took 3 weeks. So, is it going to be, is it going to be 8 weeks? Is it going to be 2 weeks? Is it going to be the season? And we saw Pat Mahomes last year. He sat the season as the 10th pick, and now they move on. I would bet every dollar that Baker Mayfield starts the season opener in 2019. It's just a question of how many games is he going to start from here to there.
Let me ask you this, too, about the Browns. People are tweeting me saying, what kind of odds do you think Todd Haley is the head coach of the Browns at some point during the 2018 season? I don't see it. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a chance that Hugh Jackson doesn't survive the 2018 season. And I guess really, I mean, if you did fire a guy mid-season, you wouldn't be bringing in anybody from the outside. So it would probably either be coordinator Greg Williams or Todd Haley. So I suppose there's a shot at that. How surprised would you be if Jackson's fired during the season and Todd Haley is named interim head coach?
Well, I think the fact that he's 1-31, you have to leave the door open to that possibility. If they start out 0-6, that has to be on the table. So, do I think they're going to start out 0-6? No. But if I were Todd Haley or Greg Williams and wanted a head coaching job, maybe you're rooting for 4 or 5 losses to open the season. If I'm Hugh Jackson, I need through 5 weeks, I need to have 1 win on the board at a minimum and have to have played well. If they don't show progress and they're not competitive, 5 weeks should be the window. But if they have 2 wins after 5 weeks, I would expect Hugh Jackson to serve out the year.
Boy, it's going to be interesting to see what they can do on offense and can't do. You got a new quarterback in your system there, a new offensive coordinator. They obviously got Jarvis Landry, but they traded away Corey Coleman. The Callaway kid looks like he might be something, but he's you watch Hard Knocks and this kid really not great during practice to see the way that they're framing it. With him on Hard Knocks. The offensive line, going to be a lot of question marks on that offensive line for them. They're going to have to really rely on their defense, I think. Now, I do think they're going to win, a couple of games, and it would not surprise me if they did not finish last in the division. But let's face it, I mean, we're still talking about a team that, what are they going to be after the first 6 weeks of the season?
Well, we're going to find out. And, we're going to find out in week 1 because we're going to get to watch.
All right. David, Todd, and I will be back on Friday, or should be, to recap the Steelers' second preseason game against the Green Bay Packers.
God willing.
We gave you a lot to email us about, hopefully, today, especially at the front end of the show when it comes to demographics and all. We hope you do that. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow David Todd on Twitter at David M. Todd. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. You can email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. We really want to hear from some of our female listeners, if you don't mind, and people let us know. Do you listen to the podcast and also use Twitter? Or if you don't, let us know. You can support the cause by going to SteelersDepot.com. Hit that donate button, upper right navigational bar. David, I enjoyed it. My 2-a-days are officially over, though. One podcast, I think, a day for me right now until training camp.
Take the afternoon off.
Yeah, there's no such thing for me in that. But go ahead.
As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Dave.